Today we are making predictions on who's taking home the W's, who's taking home the L's, and it's all happening in the Marshall and the L. Welcome to Pitch Side with myself, Sean Ryan Radio, the podcast dedicated to grassroots rugby across Canada. And today I do a U-turn on my predictions for the Marshall and stay the same for the L. If you're jumping into the action and you want to know more about how the league works, you got to check out some of my previous episodes of the podcast. We talked about the structure of the L, the Marshall. We talked about the TRU, the NRU, and some of the other provinces like Alberta and Nova Scotia to check out. So if you're interested in rugby in Canada, check out those episodes, learn a bit more about the structure of the league for this upcoming season. Now, at the start of each episode, I do a quick update when there is an update. Before we dive into the predictions and all that jazz. And one thing I gotta make sure you're informed is that the Coburg Saxons will not be playing in the TRU this year. Now, it's not 100% confirmed if it's going to be a merger with another club in the TRU or if they're just disbanding or what the whole story is. I'm not 100% sure, but they're not participating in the TRU. So this is going to have major setbacks, major changes to the TRU with the structure for this upcoming season. Due to the fact that it was set in stone for 16, now we're going to have 15. So from what I'm aware of is that the TRU City division and the TRU East are now merging together. So those 7 teams are going to be one division. And from what I've been informed, and it's not confirmed. No, Rugby Ontario hasn't told me directly, but what I've heard from the grapevine is that the top 2 teams in the north and the west, and then the top 4 in the City East is what I'm calling it, or the TRU East is what they're calling it, are going to be the teams that get into the second half of the season. So there's a lot of uncertainty hanging around at the moment. It's a bit nerve-wracking for players, coaches, clubs, just unsure of what games are going to happen. How is that going to impact? Does that mean it's going to be less likely for promotion, more likely for promotion? The structure changing so late in the game is another big thing as well, because we kick off tomorrow when this episode drops on Friday. So there's a lot of question marks about it. I'm unsure about it. People are unsure about it. But I think once we have kickoff, I think things will settle in and we'll update you on the next episode on what is actually happening if I get the information. Now, we'll kick off with the Owl for the predictions, and we'll start with the Premiership. Last week I got 2 out of the 3 right, so I expect them all to be correct this week. And we'll start with the Aurora Barbarians versus the Bradford Harlequins. Last time these 2 teams met at Aurora's home ground, Harlequins took the W 37-0. Both teams are top side teams. They're very competitive, and this should be the game of the weekend. If you're looking for good rugby in the women's sphere, the Owl Premiership, you got to be in Aurora this weekend because that's the game to go with. Now, are we going to see the same story in regards to the scoreline that we had last time? I doubt it. I feel like this Aurora team is a lot stronger than what they were on that particular day. But I still think this Harlequins team has that bit of an edge. I still think they're going to win by 7, but I think it's going to be a good match overall. Now, Guelph versus Scarborough. Last 2 encounters between these 2 sides, Guelph has scored 186 points, so absolutely ridiculous number. It's a bit of a David versus Goliath type of match, where Scarborough look like they're looking up. Can we defeat it? Can we defeat it? Is the big question. And look, I think the rugby community want a closer contest. We want to have this game to be entertaining as well as rewarding for players. But this Guelph side is just it's on a different level, to be honest with you. And I think they're going to win by +30. And I know it sounds a bit outlandish, but if you've been following me along for the last 3 years, that isn't a number to be surprised of for this Guelph side. Last but not least in the Premiership, the Toronto Nomads versus the Oshawa Vikings. 5th and 6th battling against each other to get ahead of each other. And Lucy Brown, I mention her every episode of the podcast when we talk about the Toronto Nomads for the women's. This is her chance to get a W on home soil. The Oshawa Vikings have won the last 2 encounters against the Toronto Nomads. So could we see something different this week? I am wearing the jersey, of course, at the moment, if you're watching on YouTube, of the Toronto Nomads, but I feel like Oshawa Vikings will win by 9 points on the day. I do feel like they have that bit more of an edge to them. Now, as the table stands for the Premiership, Brantford Harlequins in first, Guelph in second, Aurora Barbarians in third, Scarborough Aces in fourth, Vikings in at fifth, and the Toronto Nomads in at sixth. If you are enjoying the podcast, make sure you hit the like button on YouTube as well as 5-star review on Spotify. It helps massively grow the exposure to new fans as well as rugby here in Canada. We get individuals from across the pond in Ireland, UK, France, looking to come over for a summer play over here in Canada, whether it's in Ontario, whether it's over in BC, and that helps grow that exposure. And it could be players for some South African teams or New Zealand or Australia or wherever you're playing rugby. People will want to come to Canada to play the very best, and for gain more exposure, get more insight into how the scene works, the better it is for the community. So if you do want to do that, that would be fantastic. Now on to the Owl Championship. Remember, I got all four of these correct last week. I had a good week in the Owl, or the week before, sorry. So I'm expecting the same result. I'm expecting the same result. And we'll start off with the toughest one, I think, of the weekend. It's going to be Waterloo County versus Burlington Centres. Now, both of them are on the hunt for a three-game winning streak. So they've been in fantastic form for the two teams. It's going to be a tight game. That is a guarantee. I think if it doesn't happen that way, something crazy has happened within the last fixture and this fixture. It's the last time they faced each other here at the Waterloo County home ground. Burlington Centres came out on top. I've been personally impressed by Burlington so far this season. I mentioned it last episode on the fact that they were a team that only won 3 games last season in the L Championship. So having 2 games already won, heading for a third one, I feel like that momentum is definitely building up in the camp and inspiring those players. So I feel like they're going to have that little bit of an edge. I think they're going to win by 3 points. Moving on, the Toronto Scottish versus London St. George. The Toronto Scottish look in the better shape out of the two teams in the opening fixtures. London St. George will have to make the right adjustments if they want to take the W. They've been on the bit of the back burner. We're 2 games in. It's time to kind of get into gear, if I'll be honest with you, for the squad. If I'm making a prediction, I'm thinking the Toronto Scottish still have that edge. I look forward to seeing London St. George make those improvements, but I'm going to go with Scottish to win by 14. Now, Kingston Panthers versus the Ottawa Irish. Last time out, the Ottawa Irish won comfortably by 22 points. Will it be as comfortable this time out? I don't think so. I don't think so. Kingston have gained a lot of momentum from their first win last round, but I still think Ottawa do have that depth in their squad. They have massive depth, and I think that's going to be a deciding factor for this game. I'm going to go with Ottawa to win by 12. Now, the last one for the Owl Championship, Peterborough Pagans versus the Belleville Bulldogs. Now, Peterborough Pagans look the stronger side out of the first 2 matches. Belleville will be on the hunt for a win. They need to get themselves into gear if they don't want to fall into the trap of being last place and having to do the qualification bracket. But I feel like Peterborough will win this comfortably by 10 points. Now, from my understanding of how the table works, so if you go onto the Rugby Ontario website, you check out the competitions, and you want to know more about how the league works and stuff like that, it'll give you all the details. Before the Owl Championship, it's set into one table when it should be set into 2 separate tables, from my understanding, unless I'm getting it wrong. This was the system last year. I believe it was the system heading in. So the way I say the table is from west to east, but the website will say one entire table of where everybody stands. So from my understanding, the Burlington Centre sit in first in the west, followed by Waterloo County in its second. London St. George then are in third, and Toronto Scottish are in third, my apologies, and London St. George are in fourth. And then in the east, the Ottawa Irish are in first, the Kingston Panthers are in second, Peterborough Pagans are in third, and the Belleville Bulldogs are in fourth. Now, if you are looking for more info about rugby in Ontario and across Canada, check out my Instagram at Sean_Ryan_radio. You get more information about the leagues. You get photos of the players. There's a few photographers who like to collaborate with me and gain the exposure that they deserve. And right now, myself and Aaron Gazzola are battling it out with our predictions for the Marshall Premiership each week, starting this week on Instagram to see who has the better knowledge of the scene, getting the results right. So that's going to come out at 6 o'clock once this episode airs, just for time reference. It come out later on today for his predictions. But for mine, you get the insight quickly on the podcast. So starting with the Premiership, I got 1 out of 4 last week. I'm aiming for 4 out of 4. I want to show Aaron that I'm way better at predicting than him. I'm the man. I'm the prediction guy. This is my terrain. So we're going to switch things up. We're going to get 4 out of 4. Now, starting off, Burlington Centres versus the Toronto Scottish. Centres will be missing the player of the week in the Marshall, Gary Schroeder, due to the Ontario Blues duties. Centres have won both encounters against the Scottish last year. Scottish have won 3 times more games away from home than at home last season. So their away wins were they just seemed to win away, and at home they just couldn't find the answer. But if we're going off predictions, I'm going to go with the Centaurs to win 25-22. I think it's going to be a tightly contested game. I think there's a lot in it. I'm not writing the Scottish team off after last weekend's results. So I think they're going to get that losing bonus point, possibly, maybe get the 4 tries. But I think the Centaurs will end out on top by just 3. Now, the other fixture to be looking at, Bradford Harlequins versus Waterloo County, first and second of last year. So these two know each other well. They're kind of rivals. They played each other in the McCormick Cup final. So there's a lot of tension in this game. Harlequins will be missing Will Kelly and Jordan Cozina due to the Ontario Blues, while the county will be missing Nate Roberts and Matt Fish due to the Ontario Blues as well. So they're missing some key individuals. Don't know what way that's going to unfold. We also have to take note that July 2023 was the last time County won at Bradford in the regular season. So it's been about 3 years since they've won. So does that factor in? Who knows? I still think Harlequins do have the edge. I'm going with them 35-24 due to just their depth, home advantage. They just have an unbelievable camp that they have down there. Bammy Beach versus London St. George. This is the first time they're meeting in the regular season based on the records from 2017, my apologies, to 2026. So that's the information I have. I can get all the information from 2020 or 2017 to 2026. So they have never played each other in the regular season, which was kind of interesting. Bammy Beach will be missing Philip Pasijic. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, and James Stockwood due to the Ontario Blues duties. The London St. George had the highest away win percentage out of the whole Marshall League of 80% last year. Now, I know they were playing a competition in the championship, but it's just an interesting figure to take note. Can they carry this into the Premiership? I think Beach will scrape the win 21-18. I still think they have that bit of an edge. They have the history of having the most McCormick Cups. Their team you can never really write off, and I think they'll just have that bit of an edge. I do think Waterloo or London will be making the press to kind of get the win, but I think they'll just miss out by 3 points. Now, Aurora Barbarians versus the Oakville Crusaders. Crusaders will be missing 9 key players due to the Ontario Blues. Barbarians lost by 2 last time out when they met here at Aurora's home ground against the Crusaders. So I have a feeling, and I feel like I'm going against the grain, the Barbarians have the skill to get the W with the scoreline of 28-21. I just think that missing 9 key players on your first team squad essentially is a big question mark. And I think if they only lost by 2, I think certainly they can exploit this advantage that they're going to have, especially being at home, to get the win. So I'm going with the Barbarians. I really hope they get the W because I know that Aaron has definitely taken a different picture to this one. Now, in the standings for the Premiership, Bradford Harlequins are in first, Burlington Centaurs in second, Toronto Scottish in third, the Aurora Barbarians in a fourth, Bammy Beach in fifth, Waterloo County in at sixth, Oakville Crusaders in seventh, and London St. George are in eighth. You guys have predicted the following for the Premiership via Instagram during the week. I post the stories up on Monday. Sometimes they're a small bit earlier, sometimes they're a small bit later. Just depends on my personal schedule. But very interesting results across the board. And this isn't just 10 people voting. This isn't just 20 people voting. This is between 4 and 600 people voting in these polls. So that'll just give you a general idea of how many people are voting and thinking they have the right answer. Now, 72% think Burlington Centaurs are going to win over the Toronto Scottish. 84% think that Bradford Harlequins to win over Waterloo. 69% think that Bammy Beach will win over London St. George, and 58% think Oakville Crusaders will win against Aurora Barbarians. So very, very tight for that Oakville Crusaders Aurora Barbarians. I think a lot of people are taking in consideration the Ontario Blues is being a major factor for that matchup. So that's definitely going to be the one to be looking at. Will we see an upset, or will Oakville Crusaders take home the W on their away fixture? Very interesting predictions by the public, but will it be right? If you want to get involved, got to check out the Instagram on the Mondays. To get in your votes and be a part of the league and the polling, be part of that figure. Now in the championship, I got all four wrong last week in my predictions, but I am certain they're going to be all correct this week. Starting off with the Guelph Gokes versus Markham Irish. This is another fixture where these two sides haven't played each other based on the records from 2017 to 2026. Both teams showcase they are well able to attack in the first fixture of the season. It's going to be a tight match. I do think these two teams are going to be absolutely battling each other. I'm going to go with Guelph due to just winning the opener, having that home advantage, as well as the impact of the university side that they have, as well, that like energy that comes from their university team. Just for reference, won the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship, which is the highest trophy you can get. In Canada for the university level, and so that energy and those individuals will definitely trickle in to the squad. So I expect that to be a factor as well in that matchup. So Guelph to win that one. Niagara Wasps versus Ajax Wanderers. Last time these two faced last season, it ended as a draw, 14-14. So this one is going to be interesting. I feel like these two teams, if I pick one, the other one's going to win, and it means I'm not going to pick any. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna pick someone. I'm going with Ajax, and solely because of their performance last week. They really showed me up in terms of just how good they're getting this year. They're a very strong team. I'm gonna put my faith in them. But Niagara Wasps has a habit of, if I go against them, there's a strong percentage that they will win that game, and they are at home. So there is that factor too. I'm going to go with Ajax. I doubted them last week. I'm just hoping I get it right. That's all I'm saying. I'm hoping Ajax can pull it through for me, get the W, and make me look really smart. Oshawa Vikings versus the Peterborough Pagans. The last time these two teams played was back in the regular season in 2024. Oshawa came out on top on both encounters in that season. But I have Peterborough as favourites to win the league this year in the Marshall Championship, gain that promotion. So I'm going to go with them to win by 5. I think they have the manpower. I think they have the skill set to take the W. Now, last fixture, the Toronto Nomads versus the Bytown Blues. Last time these two met, Bytown took the win with the scoreline of 29-17. Now, this game was in Bytown last year. But this opening fixture is happening at the Nomads. So there is that implication that being at home and the long journey. Okay, so this Bytown traveling anywhere is a long journey in my book. So they'll be traveling a good 6 hours just to play the Toronto Nomads. If it's happening at the home grounds of the Nomads, of course. The Nomads will be wanting to change their image after the first match of the season. They're at the bottom of the table. They didn't have a great performance, but they'll want to change it. I'm still going to go with Bytown. I still think they have the manpower, the energy to win by 10. So, standings in the championship. Ajax Wanderers are at the top, Guelph in second, Oshawa Vikings in third, Peterborough Pagans in a fourth, fifth, the Bytown Blues, sixth is the Markham Irish, seventh is the Niagara Wasps, and then in and eight is the Toronto Nomads. You guys have predicted the following for the championship via my Instagram story during the week, and this is what you think. 57% of you guys think Peterborough Pagans are going to win against the Oshawa Vikings. 61% think that the Bytown Blues are going to win against the Toronto Nomads. 60% for Guelph Goats to win against Markham Irish. And 62% believe that Ajax Wanderers are going to win against Narg Wasps. So we're pretty much on the same page. They aren't very fine margins. If it's maybe 60, it's going to be 60-40. They're very tight for those percentages. So the opposite percentage is the win percentage for the opposition. So 5% in between the 57% and the 62, 5% of a difference between all these games is very, very tight. It's not like a 72% that we had in the Premiership, or an 89%, if I'm not mistaken. So very interesting fixtures that they're going to happen this weekend. It's going to be very tight. Now, I mentioned on my story during the week, we are doing a question of the week, and essentially the segment is just giving you a question to answer when you get to this stage of the podcast. It's not the nice ending, but it's a question that I feel like we need to maybe get a better answer at, or maybe figure out the problem or figure out the solution. Um, should we have schedules and fixtures set in stone, you know, 3 months before kickoff? Right? I'm saying 3 months, but like a bit earlier than, you know, because my reasoning for it, and I mentioned on my story, is that uh we have had a new team introduced into the NRU quite late. I think maybe 6 weeks out from the start of the season, so not too far out, but far enough that it's like, okay, there's a new team structure and all that jazz. We've also had one of the teams from the TRU not participating this year, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast. So that makes it a big question mark in terms of the structure for the TRU. They had it set in stone for 16. Now it's going to be 15. And, we have that collaboration between the city and the East now becoming one division and all that jazz. So very, very interesting. We've had two teams from the NRU move to the TRU. I know that was well in advance, but that's something that's a new thing added into the mix. Still not sure of promotion, of how that's going to look. When you look at the NRU, they've only got 6 teams to battle it out, and I'm guessing the top team out of that will get the promotion spot, whereas the TRU now has 15 teams. Um, is there 2 spots available for promotion? Maybe that's the question that's on everybody's mind. Um, so very, very interesting, and seeing how it's actually going to form. We don't have confirmation. Nothing has been said in terms of what way it's going to actually shape up. Because, as I said, the McCormick Cup, are we having a 16 team? The Marshall Instagram page is saying it's 8 for the McCormick Cup, and the Fall Cup is the championship, just like last season. So there's a bit of question mark. There's information that we're missing, and not it's not being communicated, which is disappointing. But as I said, should we have schedules or fixtures set in stone 3 months in advance? I think 3 months in advance isn't too bad. Maybe 2 months. But last minute, this news about the Saxons dropping out, was, I think, within the week. And we kick off tomorrow as of this podcast coming out on Friday. So it's a question mark. It's a question for you. Let me know in the comments what you think. Or you can always email me at seanryanradio@gmail.com if you want to get more involved, or you can message me on Instagram. But I just feel that we need to be, this is the structure. And if you are gonna, fold, then, put them as forfeit games, for that group, because that's just the way it's gonna go, because you've set yourself up to play these games, and if you don't have a team, then you're not going to get any points, and the opposition get a full 5. That kind of way. Like, that's the way I would see it as the solution. I feel like them dropping out and then changing the entire structure is just as money. But obviously, teams want to play games too, and individuals want to play games, and there's all that impact. So, that's the other part of it, of just not being organized. You've players who are trying to get time off of work. And trying to set up babysitters, for example, or figuring out where they're actually going, because changing the fixtures and stuff like that, planning it out, getting schedules, just being on top of it, really. It just makes it very difficult for individuals to do it, both in any league across the province. So that's the question. Let me know in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you're listening to. I believe I've reached 50 50 subscribers on YouTube, and we're getting close to it on Spotify. So I'm pretty impressed by the numbers. I know it's a podcast. I know there's a lot of talking in it. So I do really appreciate people staying around. A lot of you guys are staying around for the episode and getting more information about the scene. Super, super exciting stuff, and I really appreciate it. You can also find me on Instagram at Sean underscore Ryan underscore radio. As I said, you get loads of bite-sized bits throughout the week, keep you up to date. But the podcast is where you kind of get a better insight into who I am, making predictions, as well as any of these quick updates that need to be addressed. If you want to help me cover Canadian rugby, you can always check out my Ko-fi. It's in the link in the description of this video. It's basically a link that gives you everything, so you can get onto the Instagram. Everything is on that link, so you can check that out. But if you want to help me in any shape or form, Ko-fi is the best place to check it out. You can help me that way. It keeps the podcast running, get the lighting on. Laptop. A laptop is the new thing that I need to do because this thing is running absolutely roasting, and I'm hoping this video doesn't doesn't lag at all due to just the amount of heat. We're in the middle of summer. Well, we're not in the middle of summer, but we're at the start of summer, and it's quite warm. You can probably see I'm sweating a lot on the camera. Just to be honest with you, just to be a bit real towards the end of it, as if I wasn't real enough. But yeah, if you want to help me, that's the way to do it. Until then, I'm Sean Ryan Radio, the radio guy, that radio man. And this has been Pitchside. Boom.